This is welcome to the third, I guess, third meeting, the Community Engagement Commission. We're going to, as part of the call to order, I'm going to include the review of the minutes from the last meeting. Did everybody get a copy of that, or do you need a copy? I think you got a copy in front of you. Mm-hmm. Do we have any corrections?
On page 1, it said under workshop discussions on Trailhead about the highlight that it is the only floodplain. It says PLANE. It should be PLAIN.
Okay, can we fix that title?
It's minor, but well, it's just that when you're talking on a floodplain, I mean it would be PLAI.
I got you. I'm a words guy myself, so we can correct that.
I'm terrible at it, so
I would appreciate
any other corrections.
I would just say that.
Go ahead.
On page 2 on the workshop discussions continues when we were in discussions on the Trailhead. I think that the commission had agreed that probably when we do the outreach, that having just a couple of design concepts would be helpful when approaching the public.
Was that the first full paragraph?
Where we have that of it.
in the workshop discussions, you're just saying more as a general comment. That wasn't.
Yeah, where do you want me to add that?
How would you like to amend that?
How about just the last sentence on that first full paragraph? The commission agreed that having a couple of design concepts would be helpful when approaching the.
So she's looking at that page, the first
I'm
full
on
paragraph,
page 2.
Okay.
where it starts.
Okay, so we're striking which part of the sentence?
We're not really striking any, we're just adding that to the end of that paragraph.
Okay.
In the workshop on the trail set.
So where it says, and then design concepts can be determined,
Mm-hmm.
we're adding what?
The commission agreed that having a couple of design concepts would be helpful when approaching the public.
Thanks, Robin.
Taking my own notes on this.
Have that written down if you want a copy.
I will, I think I've got it written down. So Megan or Kate, okay, you got it. So any other corrections to the minutes? All those approve of the minutes as amended, say aye.
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 Time to also do roll call, item number 2. Do we have, do I announce their names or do they announce their names? Sounds like normally done.
Do what you do at planning commission?
Yeah.
Say, do you have a pull back or do you want me to pull back? What do you, oh, she just reads the names and they say here. Oh, just like a council, so start.
Yeah.
Okay, Robin Bechtel.
Here.
Summer Darrow.
Here via Zoom.
Carrie Peters.
Here via Zoom.
Karen Asner. Betty Christensen.
Here via Zoom.
Mark Saba.
Here. Fantastic. We have everybody here one way or the other. General business, following up on some things we've talked about in the past. A few of these items cross over into each other, and it's difficult to take things one at a time because some things will apply to a later item. So if we cross over into a later item, so be it, because some things are relevant to another item. Just want to share an update on what happened with Farmers Market on Saturday, May 14th. First, Mark, you want to share a little bit about your experience there and what happened, and we'll also talk about the notes you took that are in the side of the wall there.
Sure. Believe it or not, as you know, the weather was pretty downright cold, but the attendance was very good for the first farmers market. A lot of people caught a lot of people's eyes. I mean, they'd come to the booth, and they would focus in on that. And a couple of people I had to grab, say, come on over here. If this was your money, how would you want it to be spent? That was basically what I asked them. And as you can see there, no answer was wrong. I mean, honestly, between us kids, you'll never see a speed bump on a roadway, only because of the snow removal. But like I said, no, and the other thing is the third lane on I-90. Well, these funds aren't for that. But, you know, there was a lot of people that said it. So very positive, very informative, if you will. Hopefully you can read my handwriting because it was shivering out there at the same time. But it was, as you can see, it's a widespread number. And I don't know who's out there Saturday.
This Saturday.
Yes.
Robin's got part of it, and
I'll be there. This is Heidi Christensen. I'll be there from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Okay. It'll be really good if, I think it would be advantageous if I'm not sure if you want to take that out there or if you want to start new and then we'll comprise them together.
we will discuss that.
Oh, okay. Because it was, but overall, I mean, the input was very positive. There was there was a couple people there that were very negative. And what their negativity was, why does the city do this? Why does the city do that? Why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? My comeback to them was, you ever thought about coming to a city council meeting and they have a thing called citizen comment? For the most part, but there was a couple people that said, no, I was not aware of that. And I just told them, I said, city council meets every Tuesday, first and third Tuesday of every month. And so that's about it.
So also looking ahead at schedule, we've got, Robin, I think you're taking the first 2 hours Saturday, correct?
Yes.
And then was it Terry taking the other 2 hours?
Heidi.
This is Terry, and I'll take it on the 28th.
You got to my next question. We fill up the next couple of Saturdays beyond that.
And then I can assist on the 28th as well with Siri.
So do you want to double up or do you want to split shifts, split hours?
It's up to Terry. I'm good to split. If that works for Terry. Unless you want to be there for 4 hours.
That's fine. We can do that. I'll split shifts with anyone any given Saturday from 11 to 1.
Who was that?
It's Heidi Christensen. I'm sorry.
So did you say 11 to 1 on any Saturday?
Correct.
So the next Saturday after that is July.
No, June.
June.
Excuse me, June. I want summer to get going here. June, what day is that?
4th.
June 4th.
I can be there.
You want all 4 hours or part?
I can do all 4 hours. I can be there all 4. If I can be there, no.
Who is it?
Terry, you're breaking up.
Terry, we're getting about every third syllable.
Sorry, I'm going through the Oregon mountains. I can do it on the 4th as well.
I have no problem with both of you popping in at the same time. That's
fine.
Fantastic. And do we want to schedule as early as June 11th?
I can assist on the 11th.
I can assist on the 11th.
Yeah.
This is summer. I could probably do the 11th. Full disclosure, I have COVID and my brain isn't working. So when I can function again, I'll look at a calendar.
Oh no. I hope you feel better, Summer.
Thanks. All good. I'll listen.
So I think to be safe, so Aaron and Robin for the 11th. And we will continue to monitor our other members' health and recovery.
Appreciate it.
And then, does anybody want to commit as far as June 18th at this point?
I'll do the 18th. No, wait. Nope. Yeah, I think I might, yeah, I can do the 18th. 6/4 and 6/18.
Anybody else want the 18th?
I don't know right now.
Okay, yeah, we'll stop there because we'll be
I
meeting.
don't know right now.
We'll be meeting before then.
We'll be meeting before the 18th because our next meeting is the 15th.
I'm just planning a little bit ahead. Rather than springing something on the last minute on Sunday with 3 days to think about it.
Yeah.
So looking at next Saturday, the 20th?
Yeah, 21st.
Do we want to do the same question, or do we want to try to get in some sort of a trailhead golf design question?
No.
They just unveiled some of the potential designs last night at City Council. Is that something we want to do, or that would be the only chance we would have to really cover that before the?
I would stick to this because the trailhead, I think the trailhead thing is more like we were talking last night at the meeting. It was so educational when they came out with their presentation. It kind of left everything, you know, out on the floor. So I would recommend that we continue this because this is huge. This is huge. And I don't, you know, and not everybody was at the farmer's market last week. There'll be a new group there to get their input. And as for Trailhead, that's next week. I think
Wednesday the 25th.
25th, that's next week, yeah.
Other thoughts?
So I guess I would ask a question, I guess, on the American Rescue Plan piece. Is this a decision that City Council is moving forward with quickly? And so then
Cautiously.
So then I guess I would go in the opposite direction. I would say.
Then I got a question for you. What would you ask about Trailhead?
Well, the pieces that we had talked about, at least in the conversations with Chris when we met with them, were
right,
but some of the pieces that were on the shop.
People are gonna, the input that you're probably gonna open, and this was where we were talking about a Pandora box. This was brought up at council meeting last night also, was that people would get, if we bring it up too early before the open house, this is what Lisa brought up there last night. People might think, oh, I can put my input into the design of the building. Well, and the building has already been pretty much designed.
I guess the pieces that I was referring to were like when Chris was talking to us about the multiple swing suites as an option and how that potentially was being cut. So looking at those types
now,
of
that
items.
was brought up again last night about, see, another thing, those cuts were also brought up. They brought two versions of it.
Right.
One that was cut and one that was added to it.
Right.
Sounds like from what I heard last night, they may just go ahead. They're hoping to allocate the monies that they're going to need to add that other stall and increase the flex area back up to 100.
Okay.
Now that's what I mean. See, there's a lot of unanswered questions until we meet next week with the public at the open house where they can do their presentation and everything from the Bowden Group and what's the other gentleman?
Architects West.
The Architects West, yeah. And Chris, they're going to be the three, and Lisa, they're going to be the four biggies that's going to be presenting at this open house. And, you know, they can give the full picture, if you will. Mm-hmm. Whereas if we bring something up, and this is just me, and if we bring something up at the farmer's market, my feeling is that they're going to ask questions that we don't know. We don't know the answer to, if you will.
Right.
And I don't want to make us look like, you know, we're just, oh, this is a new commission. They don't know their homework. You know, that's just my feeling. So,
but wasn't this supposed to also be an informational meeting so people knew that there was a workshop? I mean,
oh yeah, I handed these out. I handed these out at the farmer's market. We had a whole bunch of them, and just let them know that there's an open house coming up with for the design plan to be presented to the public at the open house on the 25th of June.
Let me interject real quick. This is kind of where some of these items cross over to each other. Could you pull up the picture on, there's like 5 pictures of the plans of the facility.
And then Heidi has a question.
Heidi, go ahead, and I want to give everybody an opportunity first to speak by yourself first, and we'll have some dialogue. First, before we get into this, I think it's important for the rest of you who, I know Mark was at the meeting with me last time, the rest of you may not have seen some of the proposed plans that were brought up last time. There was some discussion on modifying some of the features that some of the people were looking at. So I want to have everybody take a look at the photos. These are some artist renderings. This first, go back to the first one real quick. This is a view from the rear, that's facing the south view, where that deck is. Another view of the back. And then this is a view of, again, a proposal for what the front could look like, the front entrance. And then go back and show some of those floor plans. There's just basically 2 of them there. There's also a larger overhead view. This is the lower level. And if you took, all of you here present took the tour. The flex space at the bottom, that's being planned for all golf court storage there. There's a corner area that would be a second level to the restaurant. And the rest of that would be storage space. And the top level, the pro shop gets possibly some simulation bays, 1, possibly 2, to the east of that room. There would be a flex space for, I think it was 80 people to fit. Restaurant orientation would be kind of moved 90 degrees. And then there's the possibility of additional flex space, the very north, to expand that front wall out a bit more. Same thing to expand out the, for a room for a second simulation area for the golf pro shop. And during some of the discussion on this, when this was being presented, there were some citizen comments and even some city council comments about, well, I'm looking at these plans and I think, for example, we may need some more restroom facilities, more facilities for that. So I'm just throwing this idea out there. I'm not advocating it one way or the other. One possibility could be to show some of these pictures to the public, and they'll have a chance to see them, I think, on a larger scale on Wednesday the 25th. So at the farmers market, we could post some of these up there and have this question along the lines of, what are your thoughts? I think of, like I said, some of the people who are saying, well, we need larger restroom facilities. That's one way you can get some feedback. And you can get a lot of people saying, I like this, or you could have people saying, I don't like the use of metal on the outside, or I do like it. This would really be, again, I'm not advocating one or the other, just throwing information out for you to consider. This would be the only opportunity to show the golf facility before the 25th public open house. Then you could go back to the ARPA question. We can do that one a few more Saturdays. So again, I'm just throwing that out there. So, Erin, anything else you wanted to say on your preference?
Yeah, I mean, I think the piece, I mean, and Mark, you brought it up when we were talking about some of the feedback that you received at the farmers market, which is, and we all know this, the number of attendees at the city council meetings in general is low. I think an opportunity at the farmers market to connect with people that aren't going to attend the city council open house, it to me is just another way to reach and
Sure.
connect with folks. You know, when we look at the short timeline that we have to kind of be able to get feedback from the community, knowing that they're basically going to see something on the 25th and then it's going to go to council pretty shortly thereafter for final decisions, because they do have tight timelines they have to operate on. That's the only pieces that I kind of, you know, come into my mind. My hope, I think, with this building, as with everybody, is that this is going to be a building that's going to be as everlasting as possible. right?
We were told last night,
They said
50 years and beyond.
Yeah,
Now,
so.
we won't have to worry then if it's 50 years and beyond for the majority of us, right?
Yeah.
So that's a
So-
good thing.
But
But
at the same time, making sure that that building has what it needs to be successful. Bathrooms, I mean, that's actually, you know, it's a good comment and a fair comment.
Oh,
To
very
bring
fair.
up, I mean, because if you look at the design drawings and the plans, you know, and even in the current space,
2 stalls, if you look at it.
it's,
2
you know,
stalls.
There's a woman who got up and spoke and said she has a group of up to 70 women, and they start off their golf day, and well, they need to end their golf day and have lunch and.
You need to use the facilities.
Yes.
The 2 stalls, there'd be a long line.
Was there one of our members on Zoom who wanted to speak? I heard. Heidi, go ahead. Heidi?
I'm right here. I just wanted to follow up on what Robert said regarding questions. We need to have probably a canned answer, and we might need that from council. I know one American pastime that I don't participate in at all is just complaining about governance, okay? I know people need to rant and let off steam, but when it goes into vitriol, name calling, and then threats, the more we say, the more we position the city in liability. I'm not saying that it's completely like a litigation issue, or it could be, but I just think we need to be aware what we say verbally, on email, on text. Hopefully we're never going to text people that are texting us like negative things. We want to be like affirmative of their citizenship and say, thank you for your comments. We encourage you to participate in City of Liberty Lake Community Engagement Council. We have these available positions. But if there's something we get from council to deflect that, and I've learned just to care from a safe social distance when people don't like that answer, because I'm not going to jump into their little ring of fire there. If they have a legitimate question, I can note it and say, you know, let me follow up on that, and then I will follow up on it. But if it's just vitriol, ranting, and raving, I just think we all need to be very careful about how we engage with people on that level. That's enough said. Thanks.
How do you think, Heidi, while you're there, you have a preference on which question we should be asking for Saturday? This coming Saturday?
No.
Okay. Robin, any preference, one or the other?
questions as in just sticking it,
Re-
leaving.
Repeat this one for next Saturday, or do something regarding Trailhead golf facility.
Oh, I am more to get people engaged in this workshop is going to come up on the 25th, and making sure that we have something out there that does identify with the Trailhead golf course. I mean, I do know that this is important too, but how much, I don't know enough on this right now to know when do we have to make a decision on this. And
Until 2024.
so we have time for this, and then are there any restrictions?
By this, you're referring to
The American Rescue.
to assist our people who are online.
Yes, the American Rescue Plan Act, I'm sorry, yes. So, and I guess, I see this trailhead and getting this golf course so we get the necessary interaction and public engagement is pretty important. And so at least have something out there so that we can talk about that, so that we can get people the best information that we have so that they can come to the workshop on the 25th. Not that I don't think, I mean, maybe we can coordinate the two together, but I don't even know how much funding we have for this American Rescue Plan.
3 million.
How much?
3 million. We're at what, 2.5 now?
It's 3+.
I think it's half now. I think we have half.
But we get the other half.
23,
Yeah, well, no, didn't we get the other half now?
maybe.
Yeah, we'd have to check with Kyle, but yeah, the total is 3 million.
And then, but we're getting it in increments of like so much in 2023,
1.5
so much in
last
2024.
year, 1.5 this year.
Okay, 1.C. I mean, when this came up, I'm going, I don't want to, start asking much questions, but boy, I have a lot of questions and I'm not gonna feel too comfortable beyond asking their feedback on if we have this amount of money, and I don't know if there are conditions and restrictions to this. Usually there are when you get certain monies and funding. So there are just a lot of questions, right now.
But when you're asking the question, when I was asking the question last week, it was very, very, well, it wasn't vague. It was very informal. How's that? It was basically, I told them we had 2.5 million from the American Rescue Plan Act, federal government, to spend with the city. What, if you had a wish list, what would you like to see the city spend the money on? And I left it at that. And that's where all these quick answers came up.
Okay, but I think
you don't want to get into detail with it. And the reason is because people are familiar with this. They're familiar with the American, it's been on the news for 2 years now. And, this was a big one that was brought up, it was the $1.9 trillion, and that's where it's coming from, that the president signed off on. And then this is where it's coming to, where it's basically it's monies that is given to the city for them to spend before 2024, COVID related. So that could be infrastructure, that could be the nonprofits, that could be, it's a number of.
Well, I understand what the basic purpose of that's for in here, but I only understand the real basics. And I think that we have really tried to support in the last few meetings and trying to work to get adequate participation at this workshop so that the city council has enough information so that they can also make a decision. And if we just stop now, I don't feel that we're following through.
Okay.
My God.
And I'll give everybody a chance to do a little bit of dialogue in just a sec. I want to get through our 2 other online members. Summer, do you have a preference on question for this coming Saturday?
I could go either way. I guess for me, it's kind of the people who are coming up are maybe dictating that a little bit. So if we have some answers in our back pocket, great. But I think we're still in the phase of introducing what we are, what we do, and that we're available to people. But again, I could go either way. And I guess in the future, we're going to have a lot of projects and things will be project based. And this project will turn into another one. So I don't know. For me, it's just about the engagement, frankly.
Okay. Summer, by the way, you have fantastic audio.
Are you being sarcastic?
Oh, no, our audio is coming through real great.
Great.
Everybody should have whatever system you're using for your microphone.
It's all that diction class I took.
And then was it Terry we haven't heard from yet?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes.
I think if we keep the rescue monies on the top level, very high up, and not get too specific, I don't see why we can't do both, right? If we can get pictures where the community can look and see and comment on it, and then also be able to field the questions on, like Mark was saying, hey, if would you like to see this thing? I think that's a great idea, as long as we don't have to get too specific on it.
Got a question for Jen. Do we have 2 easel boards?
We can find a second one.
It just might draw more people in to ask. We want people to ask the question. That's what we're there for, to engage them, get their thoughts. Go ahead.
Jen, based on I haven't been to the booth, based on the setup of it, do we have room for 2 easel boards?
Yeah.
Yes.
Library, I think the library has another one we can probably borrow.
Okay, then what's everybody's thought on this, doing both questions? Let people pick one or both. It makes, I don't want to influence, I just want your thoughts.
I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Both questions.
Makes sense.
Do we need to make a motion?
Do we need to make that as a motion, or just, how formal are we?
Yeah.
I don't need a motion for that.
We're good with it?
Any comments from our Zoom trio? I'm doing both.
I vote for both.
Say that again. Give me a thumbs up if you like doing both.
Aye from Summer.
Okay, so I think we're done on that one. We will go ahead and do both questions. I know Robin and Aaron, you may have to be doing a lot of shuttle between two easel boards, but hopefully that'll work out.
I did have one quick question, just trying to follow back on Mark, the piece you brought up before. In comments in general, encouraging him to come to the city council meetings. We've talked about it a couple of times, but is there a way that we can try and capture that feedback and then be able to funnel it? I mean, as part of our commission, I mean, is there a better way for us to capture that rather than just, yes, one resource is come to a city council meeting and express your voice that way, but is there another resource, and maybe that's one of the pieces you've got here, David, that we can kind of walk through, but is there another resource that we can start saying, hey, we've got to find a way of capturing that while they're in front of us, you know, because they're obviously passionate about it for whatever reason,
Absolutely.
whatever that might be, and we should hear their voice. So how do we incorporate that?
That covers part of bullet number 4 as well as new business.
Fantastic.
And then ARPA funding, you know, again, things crossed over. We kind of covered both of those together with this and the farmers market discussion, but did anybody else have any further comments you wanted to make on public engagement on ARPA funding in general? Getting public feedback on that. Again, that was brought up at the city council meeting 2 meetings ago. Their desire to get, you know, public viewpoints on this. That's why I wrote that little tag at the top of that question. The city council wants your thoughts. They literally do. They said that, what, 2+ weeks ago. I heard a little bit of that last night as well. Are there other ideas anybody has as far as getting public engagement on what people want with ARPA funding? How to spend it, where it should go?
As far as gathering their feedback?
Yes.
I mean, the only other thing that comes to mind is there, you know, a way to take some of these pieces that we've already gotten from the folks and have them reposted, maybe in just in a consolidated format that people could come back up and either check a box that, you know, they already fit one of these things, or a kind of another category where we can keep scribbling down ideas and comments. And maybe that's a way to help trigger their thought process too. So I'm sure the more you wrote up, the more people can kind of like trickling ideas to you in those conversations.
So possibly use this feedback as
kind of like
repost the responses and then do a survey based on here are some of the things people said.
Yeah, so like the easels that are out there, I mean, if we can, I mean, have an easel of here's some of the ideas that people have already come forward with. You know, are these things that you identify with, or do you have other ideas that have not been provided to this city council so far? And if so, let's write those down over here. So
we certainly have a lot of Saturdays to orient the question, I think. Yeah.
I think what we ought to do this Saturday is still gather more information. And then the following Saturday, that's when we list what our findings were.
Yeah.
And then kind of, okay, this is what the community has told us. Do you agree, disagree? Do you want to add to it? You know, that type of thing.
Yeah. Well, and that 28th farmers market being Memorial Day weekend is probably going to be pretty big. I would assume, because people are going to be, kids are out of school at that point. It's a long weekend.
18th is not going to be so busy, and the reason is that's the yard sale, so that won't be as busy. But the following week, yes, that's gonna be a big one. Yeah.
You said, Mark, June 18th will not be as big a turnout at that.
Oh, I may be wrong. I'm just saying
okay.
they have the garage sale, the Liberty Lake Community garage sale.
Sure, that is right. That's
so. then again, that hasn't been such a big deal now on Saturdays like it used to be, because they do it on Fridays too.
And your thoughts, any thoughts on from Zoom on ARPA outreach engagement? And again, we're just very early in the process.
All good thoughts.
Okay, moving on to Trailhead Golf Course, which again, we've partially covered because like these first three items just really blend together right now. I'm just curious to know, for those of you who took the tour, what did you learn from that? And how do you think you'll be able to use that as you're just talking to people you work with, friends you have, as far as understanding what the facility is now? And we've shown some designs, what it may end up being in the future. What did you take away from this tour?
I guess I'll jump in. I mean, I think the pieces that it reaffirmed was from a building need standpoint. And I think it's clear there's some, use the word opportunities with the facility as far as use and effective use of space that the new building will provide. The long-term plans for Trailhead as a facility beyond just the building, I think is still a piece that, in my view, I think City Council and the city can do and has an opportunity to really identify what that facility, not just the building, is going to be long-term and what it means to Liberty Lake. I think that's an open discussion item that hasn't really been closed the loop. The focus has been on the building. I think the building plans and what's been presented is going to fill a need long-term from a building standpoint, but that golf course is still attached to a golf course that's bringing people in from around the metro area, not just residents of Liberty Lake.
Oh,
yes. Yeah.
I learned, I was familiar, I thought I was familiar with the building, honestly. I went back there and Dave was asking me after did you learn anything? I said, yeah, I didn't know about this. There's a number of things, especially downstairs, that I was unaware of that we could use, which I'm really glad to see that they're going to use with the new plan. And the thing I like about it, listen to Chris talk, as he walked us through it, it was me and Summer and Dave when we were there. When he brought up the thing about the extra 500 square feet for the restaurant as a speakeasy, I go, yeah, that's cool. That's cool. It's utilizing space that will be used for retail in the basement, for private parties or that type of thing. And I was unaware that they were going to put an elevator in there. Well, I just thought, okay, ADA, whatever that's called, the American Disability Act. I just, after seeing what we saw, the existing building, and then seeing the renditions last night, I was just like, wow, this is going to be awesome. And it's going to be the crown jewel of the city when it's all said and done. And one other thing that was brought up, you notice if you notice at the corner, they got power lines above, they're going underground. Power lines will be going, all the power will be going underground. I was unaware of this. The water fixtures underground are over 50 years old and they're so antiquated. It was brought up that they're going to redo that too. So those are kind of some really classy things that, was brought up last night that I thought was, hey, makes sense. And do it now rather than wait. The funds are there, because if you wait, like Lisa was saying, it costs a lot more money to get those things done. So
just to let you know, Terry had to leave the meeting.
Oh, okay. I'm interested in Robin's comments because, as I recall, you're not a golfer like me, right? So what did you take away from that? Because there's a lot of citizens like you who travel past where they never go to the site.
So I got a really quite enlightening actually, because like I said from last time, yes, in my early years, I was going Woods College. I worked at a golf course, but really like the tennis courts. But looking at I've done in my past life as a planner, like conditions assessments and different things on buildings, and find that building definitely needs to be very aggressively renovated, especially when the Liberty Lake wants to make this more of a, for the city, a destination area. So I think that the things that I seen was overcrowded offices, in fact, hardly any place for their offices, no real organization. They need to have more maximum occupancy to bring more people in, help revenue. I was very impressed that during the winter that Chris is really trying to get this. And he said, it was for the city council. How do you bring revenue in during the winter and being able to have it more multifunctional and having those simulations, the rooms that you can not only use it for golfing, but you could use it for other, if you're a tennis player or a soccer player. And I think that would bring people in to be able to use it for the winter. And then of course the restaurant. I think it's good to have a restaurant that can bring, they're going to have an expanded menu so that people who just want to go out to eat that night, maybe they don't want to offer anything, but just go out to eat. That could help to draw more revenue in for the city too. It really is, I think Mark said, it really is the crown jewel for Liberty.
Then Summer, you were on the tour the same day I was. What did you take away from that, and what do you think you'll be able to share with people from your time there that afternoon?
Yeah, kind of same as Mark. I mean, I know I was on the same tour with his questions and my questions and your questions, so we're kind of in the same conversation. But I was really into the sort of secret feeling space downstairs. I liked the more efficient golf cart setup. Just for me, it was the conversation about things being more efficient. We've kind of hit that place, I think, with how many years it's been there and what's been going on, and maybe drastic changes are hard for people to kind of wrap their brain around, but efficiency is usually pretty good. I will say though that after having that experience, and I know we have an answer sort of about Palenque sort of, but the younger crowd, I would say the oldest that I spoke to is 16, and then I've got some mom friends here with their littles. They wanted to know about Palenques. That was their thing, so I think that, I don't know, Mark, how much that came up, but I think that's probably some amount of people care about that.
Palenque is just going down the road in the brand new
right
road.
But I just that that came up a lot, so when I answered with that, it was kind of like, oh man, or like, okay, like there was nothing more than that really, and that's just something people have to deal with in their life. It's not that big of a deal, right? But for some people that was their main thing, because they're not necessarily golfing, they're not necessarily going for Christmas parties, so that's just kind of something they care about. I don't know, that's that so far that, but also just yeah, I mean, I was really impressed. I thought that was super cool.
Actually, just put up a shared post on our city's Facebook site. The high school band boosters are doing a fundraiser through the Mexican restaurant, and there was some comments there about the fact that they are relocating to where the site of the near Home Depot, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
So at least that word is getting out there a little bit, at least through that fundraiser.
Sure. I just think that's, oh, sorry. Just to wrap up my thought. I think that a lot of people hear that rumor in general about a lot of things. People hear, oh, that's going to Home Depot, that's going by Yokes a lot. So, I mean, as time goes by, it will become a reality. But right now, that's kind of just something everyone says. So I don't know how many people are actually, kind of feeling that yet. But that's it. It's all good.
And Heidi, I don't want to leave you out. I know you were not part of either of the official tours, but did you have any comments on this, or
I do.
With the plans that we showed you a few minutes ago?
Yes, I did look at all that virtually, and I think it's a fantastic investment. And I'll just echo what everyone said about improving efficiency, but also attracting tourism dollars and letting everyone know that, hey, we love it when you visit Liberty Lake. So for people who live in Medical Lake, new families who live near Gonzaga, we always want to welcome everyone so they think about moving here, and definitely they help our economy. Thank you.
I'm glad somebody in the group got use out of my virtual tour that I sent out with the photos.
You've saved me a lot of brain capacity. Thank you so much, David. You have no idea how nice it is. Right.
I personally like the pop quiz about the golf cart price because I thought I had an answer, but I wasn't willing to hit the buzzer.
Anybody remember the price? It was what, like 10,000?
Over.
Yeah.
No, I thought they were 5.
5.
But they lasted 10 years.
Okay, that's right.
Is that what it was? 5 and they went ish. Although nowadays it may not be 5 anymore.
And from what
we've got a golf cart for our golf tournament coming up on the 11th. We got a hole-in-one prize, and we had to get insurance and $15,000 golf cart.
Yeah.
I think from what I recall, he said the golf carts have a pretty rapid rate of return.
Yes.
On the rentals.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Any final comments, thoughts, questions, suggestions regarding engagement related to Trailhead at this point?
How many people are planning on coming to the open house next Wednesday?
I'm gonna try.
I think I'll be there.
Yeah, I'll be there.
We'll see how I'm doing.
I'm not sure because of work.
I'm in town, so yes, I will be there.
Yeah, I'll be there.
I think I can.
It would just be kind of nice if there's a few of us there. That'd be kind of neat. Yeah. Okay.
And then the last thing I want to look at, and I sent out, like I did some research and give you all a 3-page handout that I put together. Looking at online related resources, this kind of goes back to something Aaron was bringing up earlier. In fact, it was brought up at a city council meeting about 2 weeks ago. There are other ways to engage in the public beyond Facebook, beyond Twitter, beyond social media. So one of the ideas that's been presented to me, like day one when I started the job, was there are several resources out there, companies, their business is to do online public engagement survey work. So I've been in contact with 3 sources. I did a little bit of investigating on my own with a 4th one that to me is just not the one to use in comparison to the other 3 that are available. So I didn't even give you any summaries on that one. It's one that's more related to the school world, which is where I come from. And I thought, yeah, it could maybe be sort of used to be doing survey work, but it's not the best resource for that based on the other 3 that I have looked at since coming here. I'm just curious, any initial thoughts from anybody before I kind of go into each of those 3 in somewhat of a bit of detail?
Aaron, isn't that kind of your wheelhouse maybe a little bit?
Some days. Yeah, I mean, I'll be curious to see, some of the other information. I mean, the deck that you provided on the public input piece was really fascinating. I think the more...
You mean the company called Public Input?
Yeah, Public Input company. The pieces with surveying that I feel like has been the most challenging lately is a lot our previous reliance on social media platforms to push information out is, I'll just say, challenge to say the least, and relying on like email correspondence surveys and other things it has really limited responses. So I think the tool, while it will be helpful and important for being able to analyze the data and the information that comes from it and be able to make decisions off of it, will be good. The most important thing, I think, will be more how we use it. And so whatever tool we end up with, I'm sure we'll be able to make it work. But it's how are we actually using it to get people's responses in that system, and building, trying to change the culture and the mindset within the community that they have an easy way to provide feedback to us as a commission, as a city council, whatever the case may be, that they start to recognize and realize there's more ways than just one or two, to communicate their thoughts or feelings or feedback on what may be taking place within the community. So I guess I just go to more of the use of it more than just the tool itself. But I think it'd be fascinating. I'll be curious to what else you have to say and what your thoughts are. But the deck you did provide on public input was really fascinating, especially as it relates to the work that we're trying to do and the different topics that we're trying to tackle.
I should add, regarding my summaries, it's a little bit difficult to really conceptualize what these things can do without seeing them, without getting a lot of good visuals. And I was surprised a few of the websites don't offer a lot of visuals of what do the results look like, what do the surveys look like on the screen. It's a lot of salesmanship and promotion and animation.
Right.
You know, I want to see the physical thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I want actual user experience.
Yes,
that's my biggest thing with surveys. Is like, am I going to get frustrated in 2 seconds and throw it out?
Yes. So I will let you know on, I think, all three of these. They do offer options where people can do text, you know, cell phone based text surveys. You can do surveys up on your website. You can leave them up there for a couple of weeks if you want to get a long-term engagement. You can also do quick polls, live polls. Tell people we're putting up the questions between 7 and 7:30 today. You have 2 minutes to respond to each of the 15 questions. You can do that sort of thing. I was also conceptualizing like the big public events for any of these three. I think I've seen that there are like these free movie nights during the summer, right? Because I was looking at the schedule, like which ones do I want to come see on a free movie night that I haven't seen yet. You could potentially, if this works well with all parties involved, put some screens up before the film starts and ask some questions about things we want to know about. How should ARPA funds be spent? Where do you feel you need a traffic light in your community? What type of a restaurant do you want to see at the Trailhead Clubhouse or some other location in the community? And then just have people go on their cell phones, give them the information, and then they can respond that way, live. We do also have the opportunity with at least a couple, maybe all three of these people, to do a live demonstration over Zoom during one of our meetings coming up soon. So I just wanted to put that out there that we do have the ability to see the live stuff. How do the surveys really look? How do the results really look?
This is Summer here. Just quickly, I was, you know, obviously the library and whatever we have some sort of control over or, you know, association with, even our cute little sandwich boards on walking paths, you know, I think whatever we can do to engage people who are maybe not at the huge events. I know it's not necessarily, I hate to bring up the COVID thing, but like, you know, a lot of people are still not quite doing that. Most people are, but other people have started engaging in different opportunities and activities for themselves, a lot of dog walking and that kind of stuff. So I think, you know, whatever it is, QR code or whatever that gets us engaged with people on the ground too.
Yeah, and following up on that, on some of these, and maybe all three of them, they do have the option to do printed surveys. So if you wanted to leave a stack of sheets at the library for people who don't go online so much, that's another way to get that component of the audience.
Great.
Yeah, still to consider putting things more into in the library because so many people use the library.
Parks, etc.
Yes.
Well, we could, yeah, the library, we can, City Hall could be another avenue, you know, we're looking at. Now, when you're talking live questions with live, is it similar to it? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I go to Eastern football games and they'll have a question and you text this to this. Is that how that
That's how I'm conceptualizing. I'm not 100% sure, but that's how I
okay, that's kind of what I was thinking too, but I just wanted clarification because that'd be cool if that
and get instant results. Everybody else can see how everybody else voted.
right.
So
I think that'll up engagement at the you know, at the meetings.
A couple of things just from a software standpoint, because we went through this experience last year and looking at changing one of our softwares that we utilize. So in talking with the companies, the things that we would probably I would recommend thinking through is how it would integrate with any city systems that may be currently in place. So the ability for that, whether they're using a backend API connector or something with whatever city systems you guys have for either data collection analysis, or whether you don't have anything and this would be a standalone system by itself, just trying to understand what that might look like. The trial run and test periods to be able to test out and use it, because the biggest thing, and you guys, I mean, I'm sure you've seen this too, and looking at their sites and going through software purchases, is the front end looks great, and the trials and the tests when they do the webinars look amazing, but the back end use is cumbersome at best. So just making sure that what they're actually showing us as they're going through a very clean set of data, for instance, is the same experience we would have in trying to build out the surveys and execute those surveys with whoever actually utilizing that software as a tool. So trying to make sure that the user experience, physically using it, as far as who's executing the survey, is the same experience that we're actually seeing in whatever sales presentation that they might provide. Those are the pieces that I've seen kind of run into where things kind of can run aground a little bit and cause some issues down the road. But the integration side of things, that would be one I would really look at ahead of time before jumping one direction or another, because we may look at one here that looks amazing, and then we come to realize it's not going to integrate with whatever systems or tools you guys want to use as a city. And it doesn't make sense to, potentially move forward with that software.
And David, that's where you'd want to involve Todd or
Yes,
IT,
I was just,
bring him into that side of it.
See, this is why we have a multi-person group doing this. So ideas like that get brought up like, oh yeah.
It was a very painful summer when we were going through this process. I'll just say that.
Let me check on Zoom. Summer, Heidi, any comments, questions, perspectives, preferences on, granted, there was a lot of text I sent out yesterday, but on the community engagement resources that we might
I would say, I just don't want to forget any people who still need some sort of hard mailer or something like that. We still have a large population of that. I'm not saying, it needs to double up the effort totally, but maybe some option where there's a stack of things at, again, library, park, whatever it is, just something non-digital. And I know that that's hard data to collect in some ways and all that, but I do think that if we're trying to engage with everyone, we got to think of some alternate ways as well.
Well, I mean, if we can almost, even if we had, whether physical surveys that are coming back, but even if we had a unique QR code that was specific to those paper forms that were floating out there, that might be another way to be able to track where we're actually getting respondents from, or some sort of unique identifier that would be able to call that out so that we know we're getting 30% of our respondents from people who are picking up the flyer at the library. And
absolutely
20% are coming from City Hall or whatever the case may be, but if we're able to have some sort of unique identifier that would help call that out, it will help us as we try and spend our resources effectively, do a better job of connecting with people. It may also open up opportunities where we're missing people entirely that we need to go find.
I've seen indication that some, if not all of them, will show that.
Yeah.
I can remember one of them said they had some stat as far as how many surveys were coming from mobile devices.
99%.
It wasn't quite that high. Not the one that I saw, but yeah, it was pretty high. Robin or Heidi, any comments?
Yes, I just echo what was said about making sure that we have accessibility for people who are not on digital. And I love the idea just given, I think there's a lot of experience that Alan, you have with nonprofits. So for the marketing piece, to know where it comes from so we can target. But also, does anyone know Joan, who's the administrator for Guardian Angels here in Liberty Lake? We have people who still vote that live there. So just a thought. I mean, seriously, that's something to consider. I know they had a lockdown on activities, but they still want to know. So if we had a flyer that we dropped off there, the independent living house that's behind the main administration building, it looks like a barn, I think they would appreciate that. And I would be willing to lead that. So I still have my nurse assistant license. And thank you.
Yeah, this is why we have multi-people on this group.
Right. No, yeah, it's such an important point to think of, because a lot of people, when someone gets placed in assisted living, just kind of assume they're just intellectually dead, and it's so awful. They really want to vote, they want to engage, and they're actually some of our best participants. So you have a wealth of brain power, and it's great to get their perspective and input. They want to know. Thanks.
Robin, any comments? Feedback?
So when I went through the material, and I know that a part of most definitely is the digital age for being able to engage, but I think that sometimes, at least in the past, some of my experience has still been just like what we're doing and engaging with the people on that one-on-one and being there and making sure that they are optional to be able to give us this information, or give the city, really it's giving the city the information, and making sure that we have the means and methods so that it's not all digital. And then making sure too that I was looking at, if this is just me, I was looking at some of the pricing I happened to see, I think it's $36,000 per year. I didn't know if that was coming from the city budget or this American Rescue Plan Act. Or...
Each member of the commission will be sharing in that cost.
I didn't know that, Robin.
Yeah, thank you. I had extra. Okay.
Now, there goes Robin.
I'll put that, yeah. So anyway, it's just that so that we know that, and we, the city primarily feels comfortable that it's all about cost benefit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the one you referenced, it's kind of a simple thing. You have to do the math. You have to think, well, do we have $3,000 worth of survey we want to do each month?
Right. Yes. Mm-hmm. I mean, I just happen to notice
in that case,
the fees and if cost benefit.
Any other thoughts? I did have an invitation from one of the outlets. In fact, I think two of them. I think all three of them would do it. To do a demo for us. They said maybe around, could be like 30, 45 minutes during our meeting times on an upcoming Wednesday night. I'm assuming, would you all be open to devoting much of a meeting to that maybe next June?
Absolutely.
Yes, I think I would be well.
Looking at the summaries I sent out to everybody, is there one in particular you want to take a look at first, or are there two that float to the top to you that you want to hear more about?
Aaron, you tell us. It was all Japanese to me. I'm sorry. I mean,
I like the information that public input provided. I think they would be fascinating to look at. From a cost standpoint, they're a little bit more middle of the road. I agree. I mean, $36,000 on an annual basis for a license to operate soft surveys. Is the city going to have that much to do? I don't know. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, for the number. I mean, if you equate it to the number of residents in Liberty Lake, I don't know that it makes sense. And then on the other option, I mean, looking at Polco as an option too, I would say probably looking at those two would be my initial thoughts. Just looking at both cost and, in all reality, once you get into it, the differences are probably going to be pretty negligible between the three platforms. I can't imagine that there's going to be that much of a difference for what we would want to use it for and what the city might want to use it for in the future.
Thought Exchange, they're a little bit different than the other two from my research. They do a lot of allowing people who take the surveys to rate other people's answers, which is a component of the other two. Now, to what degree do you need that? I don't know.
Yeah. Stop a quick question. When they do come and do the presentation, is there some type of a simulation that where we could try this out and just try it out on like a pilot project or something of that to know the benefit of what we all
you would hope so, Robin.
Yeah, I mean, for the money that
absolutely
that we're going to invest I think it would take several maybe examples or simulations that we could to be able to grade, to grade yes, or no.
I have a partial answer to that. I did pose that question to Thought Exchange because of the number figure you all saw there.
Yeah.
And we had some information from other sources that indicated maybe they would allow for some kind of a pilot project. So I followed up on that, and the response I got was that it would be like just a demonstration project, like for us in the room. It wouldn't be an actual, let's go out and serve the community about what they think about changing the city's logo kind of a thing. It wouldn't be a long-term project. It would be a demonstration in the room.
And that's pretty typical.
With just us, probably.
And that's not surprising. And I think that's pretty typical. But I think, in my view, I think that'd be fine as long as we were able to take whatever questions we have, and so that would require some work on our end, but probably before coming into that meeting, is creating a sample survey of some kind to be able to have them basically walk us through. Okay, we have our blank template. We're using your software. How is it getting inputted? How are the questions getting built? How are the surveys then coming in? So even having them kick the surveys to us, for instance, and having us answer them live in the meeting could help so that we can see how the information that flows back into the system. Those are things that could be helpful, depending on how much they're willing to do in that regard and how much they want to potentially burn time on that.
Depends on how much they want out of business too.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I also know in the case of one of them, I did ask, can we buy something on a per project basis to test it out rather than the annual fee? And at least in the case of Thought Exchange, there is no option like that. Yeah. I did not ask the other two that question. Heidi, any comments? I see your virtual hand up.
No, I'm good. Let me lower my hand. Thank you. I think I already expressed it. Thank you.
Does anybody have any objection to devoting much of a meeting next June to bring in one, maybe two of them? If we can get the time condensed, right, not have us here for 3 hours.
I'm all for it. I think we are, we can sit here and talking to them, doing the face, what the information sent to us, but one of those guys, and I think everyone, I have to touch it, I have to feel it. So I'm for having one or two of them come to our next meeting on the 15th.
Okay. I'm going to arrange that. I'm going to see if maybe we can fit 2 of them in. I'm probably going to start with the 2 less expensive options, because maybe one of those less expensive options will be everything we wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Speaking of money, where are we going to go at getting a budget for us? Have you talked to anybody about that?
Are we moving on to new business?
I feel like that came up in one of the other meetings too.
Right, and we've yet to get any answers. I don't know. Do we have to? Yeah, I don't think you know, Jan, either. And I don't.
So you don't have a budget yet.
Right.
Staff, directors, and David will start putting budgets together here in the next 2 months.
Okay.
And when we start doing that, and I'll work with David closely, we'll start identifying a budget for the commission, similarly to what we do for Parks and Arts. Right. And so I'll work with David on that. We'll work with you all on that. And so I think that the key thing that you'll want to keep in mind is not what will our budget be, but what are our thoughts and plans that we are anticipating for next year.
Right.
So while you don't have a budget this year, if you wanted to change that, we would have to do a budget amendment with council and propose something. But most likely, I would anticipate potentially, and I'd have to bring Kyle in, but potentially using ARPA funds for something like the software. It fits right up the alley for that. I don't know. I don't think council would push back on that, but they're in the middle of discussions with their ARPA right now. So that would be your short-term solution, and option is ARPA, and then long-term have some ideas. If the software doesn't come to fruition until 2023, then let's put a budget number behind that We'll add it to the budget process, put pencil a line item in there for that. You'll have an office and operating supplies line item for things like flyers. Do you want to send out a mailer next year? One mailer for all city residents. The last time we did one was around $3,000. Do you want to do software? That's a professional service. So we'll have a line item in that budget for professional services. Things like having somebody professionally custom do signs with QR codes or software services. So those are things to start thinking about now. And as we go through budget season, I'll work with David and we'll work with you to communicate what you think you might need for next year.
Okay, budget season doesn't start until October.
Staff starts working on it in June.
June, yeah. But
So that's when we'll
the
have
approval isn't until October. Between now and October, if we need funds, would we have to go through city? You know, what's the channels we have to go through? City council, make our proposal.
And we would get Kyle involved. If there was a purchase we wanted to make, the first thing I would do is go to Kyle.
Okay.
Take David to Kyle and say, how do we do this? What are your thoughts? Because I'm not the finance director.
Right.
And let him guide you all on how to approach the council. And that's the first step. It's definitely not a no, we can't do it because we don't have a budget this year. It's how can we do it? And I think that the council would be supportive.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they won't be. Yeah, I'm just thinking outside of the box here. We're talking right now. We're already talking about spending money.
Yeah.
You know, next month.
We don't have.
And we don't have any money to spend, but we do need to. You know, if we're interested in one of these programs that come up next month, you know, we'd like to say, okay, we got to take it to city council. You know, that type of thing. So.
Yeah, and so just a quick overview of budget process. So staff starts working on budgets and CFP, capital facilities plan, beginning in June, July, August. We try to have it wrapped up for the mayor by early September. Our staff recommended budgets go to the mayor. She goes through them. She submits her final budget to council the first meeting of October. And then from there, there's discussion between council, staff, mayor, about the budgets. They go through line by line, they ask questions, they make changes, they do whatever they do. By law, the budgets have to be approved by the city council no later than midnight of December 31st. But they generally will approve the budget the second meeting of December. So it is quite the process, but we go through that every year.
What would the group's thoughts be about coming to the next meeting with some potential ideas as far as what we may need to put into the budget? I mean, this would be an ongoing process, but
I don't know if it's that. I don't know if bringing something to the next meeting because we have a lot of unknowns right now.
I think those things will work themselves
yeah,
out.
I think so too. My thinking is that let's see what the presentations are before we go in. You know, we have to see, and you know, maybe we'll get a better grip on exactly what kind of money we are talking about.
So I guess David, just to clarify, Mayor, are you thinking not from a dollar standpoint, but more so from a tactical standpoint?
Just like what might we want to add? What might we need?
Like, do we want to do a mailer, or flyers or posters or whatever? So is that more what you're thinking versus dollars?
It's open-ended, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So what I might recommend is you just start keeping a tally sheet of some ideas for next year, some possible ways that you can reach out. And what I've been hearing today is flyers and QR codes and A-frames I heard, and putting things up on screens, although that's probably free. But there's a whole menagerie of routes for communication. So start keeping a list. That's staff's job. Yeah. We keep track of all of your suggestions, and then you and I will work together on sort of lumping it and putting a budget number to it.
Yeah, I mean, I could even see potential advertising dollars if we had to go put in ads to be able to get information out to people to reach them differently. You know, whether it was publications that we wanted to get into that you can't just get a free article in, or we wanted to get ad space associated with one of the local grocery stores, or whatever the case might be. I think there's all sorts of weird different avenues.
Yeah. So the first year will be a little bit of a guessing game. You'll have some ideas of what you're going to do, and then in the incoming years, it'll it'll start to form this. It'll come of itself, and you'll start to create this thing that you'll just adjust year after year. First year's hardest.
So I can see adding that as an agenda item for next time, just an idea session. And then I think it'll be an ongoing agenda item for a few months. Let's see. Another new business area, I believe it was the first meeting, the one that I attended partially over Zoom. There was discussion about electing a chair and a vice chair. But I do see that that's actually in the ordinance for this group. We can't take official action tonight because we need to advertise that. But are you folks open to selecting or voting on a chair and vice chair at the next meeting? How do you want to organize the group?
I'll speak. I'm interested in being chair for this commission, and would like to have the support of everybody else if they need be. Just want to throw that out there.
So that's one yes on having a chair.
So the next meeting is what, June?
15th, is it?
Yeah, next meeting, June 15th.
And I would request that the group think about, do you want to put yourself into nomination for chair or vice chair? You got 4+ weeks to think about that. Unless there are any objections to even having a chair, vice chair, are we okay with including that on the agenda for June? Heidi, any comment on Zoom? Aaron, Robin?
If you want to put it on the agenda, I don't see any problem with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think including an agenda item is a good idea. I think the original feedback we got was we could go, kind of as long as we wanted, kind of without a chair until we formalize things, and then eventually we have to have one, obviously by ordinance. But yeah, we'll move it in there.
I think some of the initial talk I heard was the desire to wait till maybe the group is more filled out. But as far as I know, there have not been any new applicants since the last meeting who are within city limits.
Yeah, a couple of interested individuals from outside city limits, but they can't qualify.
Any other new business, any other ideas that you generated on your own, things you want to bring to the group for us to consider either tonight or in the future?
One other thing that just came as we were thinking about the commission and not just on the chair, not just about kind of us sitting here and kind of the projects that we're working on, but one piece I would encourage to add to the next agenda item would be to have a conversation what our role is as a commission beyond just what the ordinance says. In my view, I think there's opportunity to define with a little bit more clarity kind of who we are as a commission, what our goals are, what we're trying to achieve as far as engaging with the community, and whether we're, a conversation of whether are we only focused on the pieces that city council are bringing us? Are we looking at things outside of city council to encourage city council to think about? What are our strategic bumpers that we want to define? The ordinance is very broad, and I think that gives us the opportunity to help frame what this commission can do and how it can help serve the community effectively. So I would encourage that conversation at the next meeting and hopefully workshop and start that process. I wouldn't expect that to be finished in a single session, but at least it's my dialogue on. Yeah, get some dialogue going and figure out who are we as a commission. We have very different backgrounds, which is great, and I think it'll add some value.
Well, that's a very valid point because I tell people, I'm on the engagement with the community.
Yeah.
What is it?
I don't know.
You know, we're trying to engage the community,
Yeah.
but that's a valid point. Yeah, we should get some live discussion on that, and, you know, let's get ourselves some direction, you know, and where we want to go.
Yeah, 'cause I
We
think
have to get more identification.
Absolutely.
And
Right.
that's what we lack right now is, as we're working forward, is that particular identification.
Yeah.
You know, we're planning commission has theirs, but we're new, and that's what we need to be also striving for, is that role identification.
And that's the advantage of being part of the initial group, is you get to help define what that is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and maybe that definition changes over the first year or so. You know, we start with a path that.
Mhm.
you
We
know,
have
okay,
to be
this-
flexible.
Yeah,
Yes,
you know,
very
it
much.
may shift a little bit, but you know, everything we've talked about, I feel like up to this point, it's a lot been about surveys, but we're more than that as a commission.
Yes.
And we can do a lot more as a commission, as a
Exactly.
community
Mhm.
beyond that point, so.
And so I guess I would suggest everybody, you know, spend the next month thinking about your answer to Aaron's question. What is your role? What do you want your role to be? Why did you apply for this? You all applied for a reason. What was it, and how do we turn that into something concrete, something productive, something with results? So, yeah, think about that for the next month, and I'm interested to see everybody else's responses and ideas. About really good question. Heidi, is your hand still up, or is that from before?
Yes, my last question would be just to follow up on what Aaron said about tracking any hard copy for marketing. You know, marketing has a negative word, but not to me. You know, we need to know where we need to target people better. So if they're getting flyers from the kiosk at Pavilion Park, at the library, Guardian Angel Home. So if you could help me with that, then I will be the one to take that little, I don't know how we could do it, just a folder to Guardian Angel Homes and let them handle that. And second thing would be, any thought on putting together like a frequently asked questions bank for the Community Engagement Council? Because I tell people, they say, well, what is the Community Engagement Council for? I said, to engage the community. So, and I say, obviously we're engaging the community to get their input to help City Council and our mayor move the city forward. So, I don't know, any thoughts on that? Does that sound circuitous enough for, thank you. I am an elected politician, never to be reelected. How do you answer that in a straight line? Seriously, and for council, would it be necessary for them to like put something together? Like if somebody's really ranting about something like their, I don't know, their water bill or whatever thing, how do we handle that?
You can leave something to the city administrator or the mayor.
Yes. Well, refer them, let them vent without agreeing with them, and then redirect it. Give them the resources.
So Heidi, were you thinking frequently asked questions that the public may have of you, or?
Of the Community Engagement Council in general. I don't think we need to be too granular about it. It just reminds me of what Aaron's point was. How will we find out who's engaging more where? And that's kind of how we'll gather our frequently asked questions, I suppose, too, at different venues, different events. So I mostly get mine around the villas here, and complaining about the HOA and everything is a wonderful pastime for a lot of people, and I welcome them to do that. So I just need to know how to phrase it, but mostly I just listen. I'm objective, let people vent, and then remind them they too could volunteer for positions 3 and 7. Right?
Yes, I think that there's an opportunity to kind of combine those two. Your Heidi's FAQ idea, and then Aaron's idea about who are we, what do we do, what is our role. So I would suggest think of both of those questions for the next month.
Okay.
Come up with your own responses or desires about what your role should be, or questions you may have about how do we get there. And then also the types of questions you may get about your role, the questions you may have about how do I do my role, and what happens if I'm in X type of situation. How do I respond to that? I mean, there's several ways you can go with that. Think of those questions you may have, and then we can address those again on June 15th.
Okay.
Any other last new business we want to maybe look at? Okay, with that, we'll move on to item number 5, citizen comments. Do we have any citizens in the room or online? Number 3, 1, 2, 3. No. And next meeting, June 15th, 6 p.m. Again, I will try to have at least one demo on one of these public engagement survey companies for us to really get a good visual of what this thing really does. And we will look at who are we? How do we define our role and how can we achieve that? And then frequently asked questions we may get or we may have of our role. And follow up on what we'll be doing with the question of the weekend for the farmers market. Any last stuff? With that, I will call us adjourned. It's almost 7:30. See you next time, folks.
A lot quicker than last night.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Have a good week.
Coming online, Heidi.
See you, Heidi.
Thank you. Have a good one.